White privilege does not mean that just because you're white, you are going to be more privileged than every person of color. It just means that any struggles or misfortunes you do experience are not caused by your whiteness.
Having white privilege does not mean that you've never suffered. It doesn't mean that you've floated through life on a cotton candy unicorn cloud of rainbows and sprinkles. It doesn't mean that you've never experienced abuse and poverty, indignation, betrayal, and all these horrible, terrible, difficult things. What it means, very simply, is that your life has not been made harder because of your skin tone, like it has been for black and brown people.
Let me tell you.
This could cost me followers, and if it does, I'm okay, because I know I've lost the right ones. In 2024, if you don't understand that white privilege doesn't equal financial privilege, there's a good chance it's because you choose to be willfully ignorant. White privilege doesn't mean that you grew up rich or that you didn't have a hard life. It's the concept that by the mere coincidence of you being born white or white presenting, that you have an inherent privilege. You're afforded certain benefits of the doubt that not everyone gets. It's the difference from a white person walking into a store and a customer salesperson walking up and saying, "Hi, can we help you find something today?" To a black person walking in that same store with that same customer service person following them around because they looked kind of suspicious. It's the black family that can't leave their family photos hanging on the wall when they're selling their house because the home appraiser might undervalue their house by as much as $500,000. And just acknowledge that the system that was designed by and for people that look like you has never been a level playing field.
I got pulled over a while back for a traffic violation. And the officer came up to my window. I put it down. He said, "License and registration, please." And my wallet had fallen off the seat onto the floor. And I reached over like this to grab it. And he said, "Don't lean over. Don't reach to the floor." And I did it again. I said, "No, it's my wallet's under here." And before I even got the words out, he yelled, "Do not reach for the floor." And then I got it. I understood what was going on, and I said, "I'm sorry." And then he asked me to step out of the car, and I did. And then he bent down, turned his back to me, bent down, and got my wallet from the floor. And his back was turned to me, and he was crouched down. I didn't think anything of it at the time. But now I realize that, he didn't shoot me when I reached for the floor. He didn't shoot me again when I defied him and did it again. And then he turned his back on me. And it occurs to me that when I get pulled over, my only thought is, oh shit, I'm going to have to go to traffic court. It's going to cost me money. And that it's an inconvenience for me. It's never, this could be the last moment of my life, ever. And that is my white privilege. I have it easy like that. Doesn't mean I've had it easy in all the areas of my life. Doesn't mean I haven't had challenges. It doesn't mean that I haven't had hard times. But it means that I just haven't had that. So, and that's white privilege.
White privilege is being able to say, I'm not really a political person, which is something that I hear from white people often. Being able to say that is an absolute privilege that Black, Indigenous, other people of color, disabled folks, and other marginalized communities simply do not have. White privilege is being able to walk into any cosmetic section and finding your shade of foundation. White privilege is not having, but should be having, difficult conversations with your young children about race and racism and how there are people in the world who will hate them solely because they have a little bit more melanin in their skin. White privilege is growing up and being able to own dolls that look like you, seeing Disney princesses that look like you. And yes, that has started to shift in recent years, but there are Black people today that can testify that when they were growing up, there was only one type of doll that looked like them, if there was any at all. And it wasn't even until 2009, I was in college at the time, that we got our first Black Disney princess, and she was a frog for most of the movie. White privilege is being able to walk into any hair salon and knowing without a shadow of a doubt you're going to be able to find a stylist who is competent in how to cut and style your texture of hair. White privilege is getting pulled over by a cop and the only thing that you're nervous about is getting a speeding ticket instead of worrying that you might say or do something that will get you killed. White privilege is not being followed closely around in a store because employees have assumed, based on the color of your skin, that you might steal something. White privilege is being given the benefit of the doubt in a lot of different situations solely just because you look like you're a nice person. White privilege is being able to travel freely to pretty much anywhere in the world and being welcomed by the people that live there. White privilege is interviewing for a job and not having to worry about your natural hair or if the interviewer has already written you off just because of the color of your skin. And that's not even close to being a complete list. Let me end with this. If you could choose to be black, would you? That's kind of a rhetorical question because any white person that answers yes is a liar. Because you see and are fully aware of how black people are historically and presently treated in this country and globally by white people and the systems that we uphold. And you know damn well you wouldn't choose that for yourself. That is white privilege.
Hello guys, and welcome to the Joy Report, where we get an outsider's view with an insider's clarity. For decades, Black Americans have been calling out the harsh realities of white privilege, only to be met with silence, denial, or outright defensiveness. But now, something is shifting. White Americans are finally beginning to admit that privilege exists and that their skin color has shielded them in ways they never acknowledged before. And while some are treating this as a new revelation, Black Americans can't help but remind everyone they knew it all along. Before we proceed, all credit goes to the creators of these videos. Let's roll a few more clips and I'll be back with more commentary.
Can a white person be privileged and not be racist? Yeah, every single day, because privilege isn't about being hateful to people of another race. It's about what you don't have to deal with and therefore probably don't even notice unless you're looking for it. And most people don't look for it because why would you look for something that isn't on your radar? Let me give you a story. When I was younger, I was that typical pretty white Southern girl, long blonde hair. I was in a pharmacy one day shopping for makeup and I noticed a manager following me, this little dude in the khakis and blue shirt. And every aisle I turned down, the dude would show up at the other end of the aisle arranging things on a shelf that didn't need to be arranged and giving me the side eye. I knew that he was watching me. First of all, I was a young girl and men watch young girls. I was probably 20-ish. But also I knew that shoplifters got followed. But this was the first time I had noticed it happening to me and I didn't like it. So I asked him if he could reach something for me on the top shelf. I decided if he's going to be following me, he might as well get to work. Then I handed him the stuff that I'd already decided I was going to buy, and I asked him, would you mind taking this to the counter? I'm going to keep shopping. Just like that, he stopped following me. He knew that he was had, and probably assumed that since I was talking to him, I wasn't stealing shit. Well, that worked because I looked like somebody who belonged.
One of my all-time favorite white privileges is high trust society. The white community, collectively and globally, have fostered high trust into their society. Personally, I didn't grow up in high trust white society. I actually didn't even know it existed until my mid-20s. Let me give you some examples. So I've been in restaurants where I forgot my money or they only accepted cash and I didn't have cash on me, where the restaurant owners literally told me, take your time, go to an ATM, go to your house and grab your money. Don't worry about it. Just come back when you can pay. If you go to predominantly white areas, a lot less things are locked up, and that's because there is trust within the community. White people all over Europe have welcomed me wholeheartedly into their homes without even knowing me, and left me there unaccompanied while I house sat while they were on vacation in a foreign country. White people in America have invited me to their homes to refill up my water and propane for my RV for free.
People, did you know that research shows we have less empathy? 2014 study from the National Academy of Sciences, 2017 study from the Social, Psychological and Personality Science, 2021 study from the Journal of Humanistic Psychology, 2023 study from Harvard that studied over 60,000 participants. All these studies demonstrated that white people feel less empathy, especially towards black people who are suffering. Even the well-meaning white people. As an academic, a lack of empathy is how we excuse harm, how medical bias happens, how police brutality gets minimized, how workplace abuse and gaslighting gets ignored. It prevents white people from changing the systems that are harming the black community.
This moment is important, but it also reveals just how deep the divide runs. For some white Americans, admitting privilege sparks guilt, shame, or defensiveness. For Black Americans, it sparks a mix of relief and frustration. Relief that the truth is finally being acknowledged, but frustration that it took this long and that it required white approval to gain legitimacy. That balance of emotions is messy, but it's real. And here's the truth that cannot be softened. Privilege isn't about individual guilt. It's about systemic advantage. White Americans don't have to apologize for being born white, but they do have to admit how the system was built to favor them and continues to do so. Black Americans have always known that their fight wasn't just about bad apples or isolated incidents. It was about structures, policies, and patterns stacked against them. The bigger question now is, what will white Americans do with this admission? Acknowledgement is only the first step. Black communities are watching closely to see if this will be another cycle of empty words and symbolic gestures, or if it will lead to real change. Will white Americans simply pat themselves on the back for saying the word privilege out loud, or will they take actions to dismantle the inequalities that keep reproducing themselves year after year? Because let's be clear, Black Americans are tired of talk. They've carried the burden of educating, of proving, of demonstrating, of enduring, while waiting for America at large to finally admit what they've known forever. This moment, where white Americans admit privilege, is powerful, but it will mean nothing if it stops at admission. It's worth pausing to acknowledge the shift. It shows that no matter how hard denial has tried to bury the truth, reality always rises to the surface. The privilege that once hid behind excuses and distractions is now being named. That alone is a small victory, not for white Americans who are just now waking up, but for Black Americans who never stopped telling the truth, even when no one wanted to hear it. This conversation is far from over. In fact, it's only beginning. The real test will be whether white Americans move beyond admitting privilege to closely changing the systems that sustain it. Black Americans are watching, and they've been watching all along, because in the end, this isn't new. Black Americans knew it all along.
You can still experience hard things and poverty. You can still have a really shitty life as a white person. That's not what white privilege means. It just means that it's not been shitty because you're white. You can still experience hard things and poverty. You can still have a really shitty life as a white person. That's not what white privilege means. It just means that it's not been shitty because you're white.